Welcome to the next lecture. We're gonna see how to set up your logging in Quarkus application. And so logging is a really crucial thing that you need to know because in production you need to know exactly what happened without overwhelming your logs with a lot of unnecessary data. So, and in the times when you debug, it also really helpful to have more information than you probably need, because if you need to know if you need to go deeper, it's really helpful when you have more logs than, I don't know, than you have currently. And Quarkus gives you really nice ability to manipulate it. So we're gonna start firstly with the logging and how to log in your application, right? So you can do it with there is 4 ways actually to do it. You can use any types of the loggers from Java, GBoss, or SLFG. We're gonna use a GBoss because it's like a normal way to do it, but you can use any of them. So let's create we can do a private static logger. Like this. So the way to create a new logger is basically this is the way, and one option is to specify here a name called a greeting service class get name. This is how I do it most of the time. The other way to do it is actually replace this thing with something more specific for a group. For example, if it's maybe you want to have some specific logger for, I don't know, maybe file handling, right? So you can put a specific tag here, which you can filter out later. So the rest of it is simple. It's basically any type of logger. You go to the logger and you specify some message, for example, debug, saying hello to random user, right? For example. So when you run your app, actually, let's run the app, right? My own Quarkus dev. You can see that it started, of course. And when we go to our hello endpoint, you'll see that we don't have any message. That's why this is because by default the logging level is info, and so the logging levels work like this. So you have something really low, debug, trace, and then the higher it gets, the more it's the more priority it has. So basically debug is going lower than for example info, right? So because the level info, the debug will be discarded, and everything above info, for example warn or fatal, will be shown. That's why if we replace it with info, you will see the message. Let's just start, and you can see that we have saying hello to a random user right now, right? Info. Okay, that's perfect. But how do we actually can do a debug in our case? So everything that you need, you can specify in application properties. So the way to specify, let's say like root logger level is with a Quarkus log level parameter. So here, if you put the info is default, if you put a debug here, for example, and restart your app, you can see that we have right now we have our saying hello to random user, but we also have a lot of other debug messages, like rest easy sends us the debug with the path info, and then the message body writer as well. So how you can fix it? So let's imagine that you want only debug output from greeting service. That's why we have our package name that we specified in our greeting service right here. We have a greeting service class get name, so we can filter by. So we specified the class here, right? And if we go to application properties, you can specify specific package or group by Quarkus log category, and then you put a string with the package, specific package, right? Tech.now course service, and then you put a level, specific level that you need. So in our case, it will be debug. Let's see if it will work. So we actually replaced, we uncommented our line. And you can see that we only have a debug message in our output, right? So the way to do it is basically you can put Quarkus log category and then dot and then open brackets you put a package. You can also, like, for example, remove a service here if you want more lower level of packaging, right? So we want to see all of our debug messages in tech.now course. Now if I refresh, you can see a debug output still, even though we like removed one of the packages, or even like we can do it like this, right? So now we have only tech.now. We can refresh and you can see saying hello to a user. So yeah, so that's how it works. We can also enable or disable a console output. So for example, now in case if we put a Quarkus log console enable false, and then let's remove all of the output and refresh, you can see that it says that the Quarkus stopped working, but it doesn't say anything about if it started to work, but it actually is. You can see that the endpoint is working. It's working perfectly, yeah. So you see that you can disable console if you want. So let's put a true back here. We also can disable or enable our color console. So now if we refresh, you can see that everything is basically white, so there is nothing, no colors involved. Let's put it also back. And you can also specify different types of let's say format. So you can put, for example, I don't know, here let's see how it actually works right now. So you see that we have date as it's specified in the %d, and then like level of debugging, path or like name of the debugger, and then thread called nt, and then everything else like basically log. So let's put here %l, and this will show us a line that is executed by this logger. So if we refresh, you can see exactly each line of where the logger is working. So you can see greeting service 19 saying hello to a user. Let's go to greeting service, and you can see that it's line 19 as described by our logger. That's perfect. You can also enable file logging, which is super perfect. You don't need to reroute it. Basically, Quarkus is already set up to serve in any direction that you need. There is also a syslog, but we won't cover it in this lecture. So you can output your logs not only in one place, but for example in two. In our case, it's console and file. So now if we enable our file logging, we also can specify path. For example, in the same directory, you can create a log.txt file, right? And now, if we refresh our app, you can see that in our target folder, the log.txt is created, and all our logs is also here. So if we go and refresh it a few times, you can see that we have our saying hello to a user here as well as here. So everything logged simultaneously to both sources, the outputs. And yeah, that's super good. The last thing that you also can do, I mean, not the last, but last useful thing that we'll discuss today is JSON logging. Why is it helpful? So we can enable it by adding specific library called Quarkus logging JSON. I already prepared everything. And by putting this line, Quarkus log console JSON true, now you can already see that it's actually already found the changes to a Maven actually. And yeah, that's also interesting that you don't need to restart anything. Basically everything is already here. So now everything that Quarkus outputs actually to the file as well, I think. Or maybe I think we need to restart it in order to work correctly, but yeah, so it's stopped. I think it's still, yeah, we need to specify that Quarkus wants the JSON output to the file as well. But you can see that everything here is in a JSON. Why it's helpful? It's really helpful if you want to use some searching engine, for example, Elasticsearch. And so you can input a JSON, it will parse it, and then you can investigate anything that you need. And starting from process ID, process name, and like logger name, for example, right? And everything that comes to your mind, basically, right? So if I go to refresh, you can see we have a message saying hello to a user, and everything that we specified is basically changed to the JSON. So you can feed it into the Elasticsearch, for example, and the Elasticsearch will compute, store, and then you can investigate any issues with it. We might check Elasticsearch later through the chapters. For now, I think that's pretty much enough for a start. We'll also look at the debugging logging later through the chapters, through our course. So one thing that I missed actually, is that there is a list of possible keys, which I'll put in the description, so you can look through them and maybe you find something that exactly you will need. I hope you liked this lecture, and see you in the next video.